Today it is time for a professional match of StarCraft 2, and I'm actually really excited for this one because it's time for a very long game of Terran versus Protoss. I think we get our fair share of long, drawn-out macro games for the Zerg versus Protoss matchup, and the same can be said for the Zerg versus Terran matchup as well, but generally speaking, Terran versus Protoss just simply doesn't last as long, and I haven't seen nearly as many late-game Terran versus Protoss either. Now, I obviously haven't seen this game yet myself either. However, I saw that the replay timer was significantly longer. I saw the two names of the pro gamers as well, so I figured it's time to figure out what this game is all about. Spawning here in the northeast corner of Turbo Cruise 84 and playing with the blue Terran SCVs. From Korea, we have none other than Fantasy. And his opponent in the opposite corner, playing with the red Protoss Probes. Playing under the barcode nickname, likewise from South Korea as well, we have none other than Trap. I've casted many games of both of these pro gamers before. Take it from me, they're both very good at what they do. I mean, sometimes I do these very long, elaborate, 5-minute long introductions on both players, but just take it from me, okay, on this one. They're both very, very good at what they do. Now, I like moves like this. This is such a cheeky little way of playing, right? So there's a probe already making its way across the map, and look at the path that the probe took. It scouted around the main base pretty much everywhere, and it made its way across the map, only to find out at the top of the ramp that there is no barracks. Well, he sees the SCV. Maybe that's going to give him the information he really needs. But this is one of those small moves that will sometimes completely blindside a Protoss player. Since Terran players can build their barracks anywhere they really like, obviously the only requirement to start up a factory is having a barracks. It doesn't matter where it is. You don't need to worry about a power field or anything like that. Just building it in a bit of an unorthodox location can sometimes completely throw off a Protoss player and at the very least force them to play a little bit more defensively. Still though, I mean, there's already obviously that orbital command here in the main base, so Trap knows that there's a barracks somewhere. He will now also see that the Reaper comes out pretty nearby, and he saw the command center on the low ground, so everything is kind of orthodox, but it's one of those moments where sometimes you get a little bit terrified. And I know whenever I play Protoss on the ladder and I go up against a Terran player, I really dislike this move. Just building it, you know, not even that far away from home is always at least a little bit more tedious to deal with. Obviously, though, Trap has got a ton of experience dealing with these kind of moves. It's not too significant, but I do like pointing it out. All right, so there's the Reaper. Made its way across the map. There's a Stalker already waiting to try and deny some of that scouting information. And really what that Reaper is trying to acquire info on right now is indeed what kind of tech the Protoss is going for. So it's going to be a Twilight Council. A depth spawns right at the correct moment as well. And it looks like, indeed, Trap will be able to force that Reaper to go on home. Factory is a follow-up right now too. Wouldn't be surprised to see a starport here very shortly. Already a barracks, or rather a bunker here for safety as well. So I really like this position here for both players. Not really taking any unnecessary risks and opening up with what is considered to be the gold standard. Now I've actually found on this map, right, with these big slowing bubbles, that there's some really cool timing attacks that you can do. For example, in the Zerg versus Terran matchup, I've had a lot of Terran players go for these siege tank-based aggressions. Nice little move there, by the way. But these siege tanks can sometimes really be a pain to deal with, because obviously Zerglings and other units as well have to run through the bubble to actually meet up with the tanks. So sometimes, for example, positioning tanks over here or positioning tanks over here, and then having the main army right here on the high ground can make you shoot at that base that might go down there at a later time quite easily. So I've seen some really cool strategies pop up that are specifically meant just for this map alone. Regardless, we'll see if that's going to be a thing here in a little bit. It's going to be that Blink Stalker opener for Trap, so he will be bringing some Stalkers here onto the field. We oftentimes see that elevator trick right here where they try and just have an observer, for example, spotting the high ground and then blinking up into the main base. It's very, very nice, and obviously you can always use those Stalkers, both offensively but then also defensively. Already, though, there's a Raven coming up here as well for Fantasy. This is one of those more recent additions to the Terran versus Protoss matchup, but it's really become key. Just simply the fact that you now have the Interference Matrix, which is one of the abilities that got added to the Raven about a half year ago. You know, the fact that you can disable certain units, like, for example, the War Prism, but later on also the Colossi, it can become very, very worthwhile going for that Raven early and just simply letting it accumulate energy. All right, so pretty passive opener here from both players, right? Not a whole lot of risks. Now, actually, that Adept just walks in. That's not really supposed to happen. Trap is going to get a full scout right here of the main base. He's trying to figure out if there's maybe something really greedy. It's not going to get too much done, but at the very least it now knows exactly what kind of strategy that this Terran player is going for. And, well, judging by what we see here, 3 barracks and then obviously a factory and a starport as well. Very, very standard. Nothing crazy whatsoever. All right, so here we go. Yeah, there's that observer making its way over there. Now, there is a Raven somewhere. Raven's obviously also detectors. It comes down to whether or not he spots this little glimmer over here. It's pretty difficult to spot, obviously, but it will provide high ground vision here for these stalkers to move up into the main base. Third Nexus, though, is being acquired here on the back of this, so this is certainly not going to be a push where Trap really needs to commit. Yeah, already. Fantasy is figuring out exactly what's going on as well. Having that Raven near here, he knows all he needs to do is just snipe the Observer, and he's going to be in a great spot. Oh, and there we go. It will be picked off, so that's going to make it very difficult right now for these Stalkers to really get anything done. And really, what are this small group of Stalkers going to do anyway, right? It's not really that big of a commitment. Prism is now coming up, but this certainly was only just meant to keep the Terran player a little bit on his toes. And you know what? Getting 3 SCV kills right there at the cost of nothing, always nice. Those shields obviously will regenerate. And I guess one of the Stalkers took a little bit of base health, but nothing too crazy here whatsoever. So very passive opener here from both of these players. Usually they do like going for that much more macro-focused style. Fantasy, of course. He used to be a pro gamer in StarCraft 1. Then he decided to come back to StarCraft 2 after he wrapped up his military service. I think that's about a year or so ago at this point. Very standard macro-focused player, and we really see that from most of like the old-school Terran players and really all of the old-school pro gamers from StarCraft 1 that decided to make the switch to StarCraft 2. A lot of them like to play that much more macro-focused, you know, like focused and strategically valid strategy, right? I mean, they generally speaking go for the longer drawn-out games because that's what they're most comfortable with. Usually, though, the Terran pros especially, they are so good at macro. Like, every once in a while, right? This game will go on for a little while, but just glance at the bottom of the screen and look at the spending. Usually the spending, they're very, very good at that. Especially in StarCraft 1, obviously, it's very brutal. I like that pylon placement as well, man. Beautiful move. It's now going to spot that these units are moving into the main base. Stalkers trying to make their way over there. Nice feedbacks as well. It's going to at the very least reduce some of that medevac healing. Great storm as well. That will certainly shut down all of these units. And one of the medevacs actually loses its life here as well. But especially the StarCraft 1 pros. I mean, what they used to do for many, many years is just grind out the same build order literally thousands of times, right? And just get it down to a T, right? Every single second in the first 10 minutes should be flawless. Now, that was odd. Both of the players actually passed each other in the night sky. I guess that's going to be something easily to deflect right here, yeah. The Cyclone there on the edge of the base. Not that great anymore in the main battle, but I like that. Beautiful move. Looks like Fantasy spotted what was going on. Trap did not. And that gets him a free kill right there. Even with a small group of Marines, they're still going to be able to deal plenty of damage after that Cyclone already softened up the target. Alright. So, with the third base acquired right now, Trap can start looking at potentially multiple sources of splash damage, right? If you go only on 4 gases, usually it's very difficult to get multiple sources of splash. There's actually 1 probe missing in one of those gases. Small little error. But usually, right, it's all about trying to get as much gas as possible because the late game Protoss armies just simply are better when you have more gas heavy units. Usually that's kind of a running joke, right? Just spend a lot of gas and hopefully you'll be in a good spot. Now here we go. Small little engagement here in the northern section of the map. Nice blink forward as well, trying to go after those medevacs. One of the medevacs already picked off, but those Marauders should be able to continue kiting here for a little while as well. Once again, Stalkers do have their blink ability available, and they managed to get another one of those medevacs. So eventually, this will be pushed back, as obviously the reinforcing Terran units are ready to go as well. Maybe a couple of straggling zealots there at the end will also be picked off. I'm actually curious what this is going to look like in the next patch. Once again, by the way, the Raven decides to do a little bit of aggression, but in one of the most recent balance update posts that Blizzard made, and I'll actually go ahead and post a link to the video that I made about that as well down below in the comment section of the video, as well as in the little eye icon. But they announced that Zealots, when charging, will no longer deal impact damage, or at the very least, that's what they're currently considering. Very curious to see how that's going to play out, because that's going to make these, like, you know, these charge slot timings in the middle of the map a significant amount weaker, because they will just simply no longer do impact damage. Obviously, they will slice and dice still when they reach the target, but it's going to be 8 damage less per charge per Zealot. Very significant. Alright, so Stargate is coming up right now as well for Trap. Third base obviously acquired a while ago here as well for Fantasy. I don't think I pointed that out yet. It's going to be a Ghost Academy. A nice move here, right as the Protoss army is moving out across the map as well. Fantasy manages to catch that base. Love that. Always a big fan of those High Templar inside of the Prism. He's got to keep them safe, and obviously if the Prism dies, they would die with it as well. But now he got some beautiful storms off, and that will allow him at the very least to deflect his Terran army with ease. I mean, he might still be in a little bit of trouble. The Stalkers do blink up into the main base as well. But I think he should be able to deal with this relatively smoothly. Since there's no Stargate units out just yet, I think he wants to go for some at the very least here in a little bit. Those Medevacs are going to have a pretty easy day, just continuously harassing and keeping this Protoss player on his toes. Alright, so 4th Command Center coming up. We saw that Ghost Academy. So Ghost Academy obviously great as well when it comes to, well, producing ghosts, but also tactical nukes. Haven't seen a lot of tactical nukes in Terran versus Protoss, but I would certainly like to see some more. Fleet Beacon now also coming up as well as a 2nd Stargate, so I guess the trap right now is looking to transition towards those high-end Protoss units. Most likely the Tempest. Obviously, Tempests are phenomenal in this matchup. You can pick up the units from a distance, especially if you have like an Oracle as well tagging along, so you can continuously see where those Terran armies are located. But I like this. Going for the Ghost here is smart. Obviously, this is one of those things. I actually saw a Reddit thread about this very recently. EMP is one of the strongest abilities in the game, right? Like, sometimes people ask, Lowko, what kind of splash damage does Terran really have if you compare it to, like, for example, Psionic Storm? Well, EMP is phenomenal. So EMP, it reduces the damage, or rather, it removes the energy out of a High Templar that it hits, but it also removes the shields off of a lot of this, the units that are hit as well. So what that means is that, effectively, right, if you properly blanket a full Protoss force, you can reduce their health by, like, half, right? Now, the person in that Reddit thread, and I thought that was kind of smart, he mentioned, well, nobody really complains about it because a lot of the players don't notice it, right? A lot of the observers, a lot of the casual watchers of StarCraft tournaments, they generally speaking don't notice that the EMP is going off because the animation, the little animation that lands when the EMP does as well, it's not nearly as obvious as, like, for example, Psionic Storm. I don't know if it's true, but I don't really hear a lot of people complain about EMP when it certainly is one of the most powerful spells in the game. So anyways, if you're watching right now, right, pay very close attention to these ghosty boys, alright? They're gonna certainly try and blanket the whole Protoss army here if they can, especially those High Templar. Remove the energy out of them, but then also soften up the rest of the Protoss force. It's a really strong ability that really doesn't have a lot of counterplay. And, well, once again, nice cancel there, or nice kill right there, actually, on the Nexus. But once again, right, in the upcoming patch, good snipe, in the upcoming patch, they are buffing up EMP. Now, this is nice. Oh, beautiful. Waiting on the high ground, not triggering it too early there, waiting until everything could get hit. And I guess that observer there, great positioning on that observer, will, you know, obviously allow him to see where exactly that Terran army is located. And an observer in surveillance mode like that, very difficult to spot. I mean, we don't have vision of it right now, but it's basically a small little blur that's very difficult to actually notice. Anyways, so even a 3rd Stargate is coming up. So Tempests are indeed in high demand right now. 5 Tempests are already available. We see Thors actually now coming up as well. I think those are primarily meant as like a counter. Alright, a couple of those auto turrets will be utilized as well. The Raven, though, is going to be dealt with here with a couple of Zealots that were waiting for that moment as well. A lot of siege tanks here in the back already as well, but I kind of like this. Okay, let me fanboy for a second, okay? So, I mentioned earlier that Fantasy is one of those old-school StarCraft 1 pro gamers, right? Now, one of the strategies that we saw a lot in StarCraft 1 was bio into mech. Once again, some excellent drop play. But this is kind of becoming a thing right now in StarCraft 2 as well. Basically, what you would do in StarCraft 1 is focus on biological units first. So he actually gets the kill right there on the Nexus and then also goes after the forges. That's huge. Ooh, denying those upgrades is a really big deal. But anyways, you go for the forge up, or not the forge upgrades first. You go for the biological units first, and then later on into the game, you switch towards mechanical units once you have the economy. Oh, actually, the Fleet Beacon is being target fired as well. I don't know if that's really worthwhile. You can just rebuild that one, right? And yeah, all of the Medevacs die here in the process, and then also all of the bio units. I don't know if that really was a worthwhile trade. I guess it's going to slow all of this down a little bit. We now also see a switch towards Disruptors. But anyways, we started up with bio in this game. There's still some bio left over. But now we see a full-on switch towards, I guess, Ghosts. That are technically biological as well. But then Siege Tanks and Thors as well. Thors, obviously, they nowadays have 11 range, which is very significant in that high-impact mode that they are in right now. It means that they are going to be phenomenal at picking out those, or picking off, rather, those big targets in the distance. And those are going to be primarily the Tempest that they are looking for. Tempest production temporarily halted as the fleet beacon was destroyed, but a new one is currently being made. Okay. I haven't seen a lot of, like, Ghost Siege Tank Thor action against the Protoss Death Bowl. I'm very curious how this is gonna play out. Now, I like the position here for Fantasy. He does need to be careful, though, that he doesn't fall behind economically, right? Because even though these Nexi have been denied for a little while, we see Trap just continuously expanding all over the map. And since most of his late-game army will be gas-focused anyway, right? I mean, he wants to ideally replace most of those Zealots with more gas-heavy units as well, if he can. He doesn't really care too much about having, you know, to cancel these bases. I mean, that's 100 minerals at a time. He has got 100 minerals to spare. But here we go. Oh, huge EMP. Look at that. You saw the EMP? It now reduces basically the health of all of those Tempests by half. And Protoss has to back up. Ooh, the Ghosty boys. Excellent work there. Still, though, some bio units remain. Those Medevacs obviously very annoying. They're now going to try and see if they can get the Robotics Bay as well. Once again, a couple of storms do go down. Blink forward. Medevacs get picked off. Archon gets morphed in. Beautiful defense right there by Trap. But still, he ends up losing the Nexus right over here. And then also the one in the top left-hand corner. Fantasy finding himself in a good spot. Now he's actually going up to a tactical nuke right now. So this Ghost, it's getting in position. I think this man only has one thing on his mind. And there it is. There's a couple of tactical nukes available, and this one might very well hit. I mean, the Protoss players not quite dealing with tactical nukes, or not quite used to, rather, dealing with tactical nukes nearly as much as, for example, a Zerg. The nuke does land, the probes were pulled though, and the Ghost dies as well. That did absolutely nothing. I guess nukes on bases are also not as good in, like, Terran versus Protoss as they are in Terran versus Zerg, because the shields will regenerate on that Nexus quite quickly. Unless you queue them up, right? But it's not like you accidentally kill a base over the course of time. Man, it also, like, look at these turret rings, right? That's so sick. It really does look a lot more like Terran in StarCraft 1 right now. Bio into mech and then turret rings set up everywhere. So sick. I mean, maybe not as many as we would see in StarCraft 1, but I still like that. Here's another nuke. Going up towards the third base. Once again, though, ooh, Trap is on point. Really nicely done. He's actually trying once again. Look at the EMPs. The EMPs are huge. Right? The whole front line right here is gonna have to back up. I mean, he doesn't have to, but this Archon will just die. It's got 10 health right now. Most of its life, obviously, comes from the fact that it's got shields. Oh, man, the Thor's so much range nowadays. I love that. Anyways, for a little while, we saw that Protoss players weren't as efficient when it came to dealing with nukes as, for example, Zerg players, but I guess they've had a lot of practice lately. It's becoming more and more common. I love these Disruptors, though. Disruptors have so much potential. And there we go. Well, it's going to be a little bit of damage. At the same time, the Protoss army maneuvered around this army, and it will be able to pick up that command center like it wasn't even there. Really cool. Oh, man, I'm so excited for this. So, both players are maxed out. Both players have essentially infinite economy, right? Like, they've got money to remake whatever they like for quite some time. I have no idea how this plays out in the late game. Now, once again, I do think that, like, positioning-wise, right? Trap is certainly outmaneuvering his opponent. A couple of Ghosts end up getting picked up too, but he got himself 2 command centers just now. Now, I mentioned that, right? He currently has his entire army in the top left-hand corner of the map, whereas Terran, well, I was thinking maybe he could make a move, like a beeline, straight towards the natural there of the Protoss. If you get those siege tanks in a powerful position, it's very hard to break. Obviously, Disruptors are going to be pretty good when it comes to breaking those siege tank lines, but... alright. Base in the top left-hand corner, once again being reacquired. Keep in mind, there's still a ton of command centers as well. They're going to be pretty straightforward when it comes to dealing with all of this. The Bio army trying to kite back and forth while he's also simultaneously controlling this army here in the center. How does he do it? Well, he's actually got, rumor has it, that Fantasy is playing with his feet. Alright, he's got a second set of mouse and keyboard that he's playing with his feet, and then a second monitor as well. It's like a chameleon, okay? He's controlling his eyes independently. That's the way he's controlling. I don't know, I don't do it. You have to have a ridiculous amount of APM to continuously, you know, spike up and manage all of this. I'll actually try and show the APM counter a little bit more during these fights. So if you see it spiking up to 600, that means that players are pressing more than 10 buttons a second. It's pretty insane. Obviously, you need a lot of APM in order to control these kind of bio forces, and then while you simultaneously micro as well, or macro rather as well, there's quite a lot of actions required to try and pull that kind of thing off. But both players really are mostly just testing the waters. Notice how neither of them really want to engage the main army, right? Because they know that the main army is always going to be defender's advantage, right? Unless you get like a really beautiful position there. But usually... Wow. That was the saddest Oracle I've ever seen there. That Oracle just wanted to get a tag off and the Taurs were like, nope, not going to happen. Sorry, buddy. But notice how like both of them don't really want to engage. And the damage is mostly being done by trying to send small hit squads of units to clean up those bases, right? That's why planetary fortresses are so very powerful. Love the fact that missile turrets are added on here as well. Not only for obviously those air units, then also to deal with potential like Dark Templar run-bys and all that. That siege tank on the high ground, very useful. Both players really trying to not ball their units into one big clump. It's so tempting at this point in the game to just put all of your units in one big clump and to just go. That's my experience anyway. When I play ladder and I get maxed out, I'm like, okay, I'm maxed out, let's go! But no, it's not the case here. Both players very cautious, very slow, and very deliberate with their movement. Alright. So once again, we have the Terran player starting to get into a little bit of trouble here with the planetary fortress. Storm should probably deter most of these mech units as well to make their way over there. And while the Terran army is moving over towards the bottom right-hand corner, I mean, they get a kill on a base, we see a group of Templar. I think they're ready to either defend or maybe to make a move, like a beeline towards the planetary fortress over here. That could certainly be very nice. Once again, though, a nuke is coming up. Looks like it was cancelled, and well, a second nuke was also utilized there. Not gonna help out too much. Once again, Disruptor getting in there. But here we go, a Templar run by. Oh, I love this. Even a couple of High Templar join in as well. I was wondering if they were being sent too. Look at that, Zealots, Dark Templar, and High Templar. Oh man, the Templar assassins. Okay, that's a bit of a different video game, but I love that. So sick. All right, the planetary falls. That actually means right now, though, that Fantasy managed to get into a pretty good position. Yeah, I mean, he did end up losing a planetary fortress there, but there's tons of command centers ready to replace it. If he gets those siege tanks in a good spot, it could do a tremendous amount of damage. But rather than actually going home, Trap right now has decided, okay, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and just simply go for the counterattack. He's right now also switching towards those Immortals. Immortals obviously phenomenal when it comes to dealing with mechanical units especially. It's one of the main reasons why we don't see a lot of mech in this matchup. Once again, a nuke moving across the map. Well, and that one also is not going to land. Have you had a single nuke land yet? Gotta say, really like the efficiency here of Trap. Trap just dealing with that like it's a very easy thing to do. Another ghost. Feeling brave. By the way, every time he nukes, right, he loses a ghost as well. Ghosts are very expensive units to lose. If you look right here at the total resources lost, even though this is a 22-minute game, they are still very, very even. I mean, Protoss obviously losing a little bit more, but I think that's very manageable. Yeah, so 3 nukes are being produced. So there are 100 minerals and 100 gas each. And then obviously the cost of the ghost too. The cost of the ghost is not to be underestimated. So here we go, the Immortal boys. Look at them. Oh my god, they get so much damage in. Oh well, not enough range right there to hit the siege tank. Still though, really like this. So he's actually making a switch towards tons of Immortals. Alright, so if Terran army, I don't actually know how this plays out, right? Math-wise. If the Terran army is primarily made up of like Marauders, Siege Tanks, and Thors, and then I guess also Ghosts, would just going mass Immortal be the answer? I wonder if, well, if you donate them away, obviously it's not that great, but I wonder if that's the correct call. I love the fact that he's still got those Disruptors in the mix too. Obviously, when it comes to like cost-efficient units, unless you blow up your own army, which I personally have a tendency of doing, but unless you blow up your own army, you should be in a pretty good spot. Well, Ghost right there looks like it will live. It's gonna try and see if it can turn around, but once again, man, these outer corner bases, right? I think that Trap must have planted down, I don't know, at least 4 or 5 Nexi at those locations. Once again, another nuke coming up. But every single time he tries to do so, another base will get in trouble. Now the nuke, it was going down over here. The Ghost doesn't even exist anymore. You see that cute little micro there splashing? Oh my god. Sending back the Archon. Beautiful play here. Man, this is so hard. Like, I hope I do a decent enough job explaining how difficult this is. Sometimes I think that, like, when you watch too many games of StarCraft, right? When you haven't played StarCraft in quite some time, it starts looking all the same, right? Like, you look at the pro gamers and you kind of expect them to micro and macro and position everything perfectly. But it is so very difficult to pull off. Like, how do you decide how many units you want to leave behind? How do you decide how much aesthetic defense do you want to go for, right? Like, you know this is a game for resources primarily. Yeah, the fight matters, but It comes down to how much mining you got. How do you decide how you want to do this? Once again, a Templar run by. Well, I guess there's a couple of Immortals here, right? So they're technically not Templar. But I guess they aren't. I'm not entirely sure what the specific lore situation on Immortals is. Someone feel free to correct me down below. Alright, another nuke coming up. The nuke, this time around, landing at a base, or aimed at a base, rather. That is completely unscouted. Now, I like this once again. He sees the red dot. All he really needs. Immortals, once again, coming up here for the counterattack. Storm also joining in. The command center there, over at what would usually be the 3rd or the 4th base, was once again killed. I think that's the 4th or so that ended up going down over there. Still some supply caught up in biological units. I think it might be time, actually, for Fantasy to just commit to, like, no more bio units, right? He's been successfully shutting down his opponent. The thing is, I guess the main issue, right, is that there's a lot of Immortals. How many Immortals are there right now? 11 Immortals. Yeah, that's a ton. They are gonna, like, slice through those planetary fortresses like butter. Oh, huge Disruptors actually there as well. Once again, we see another tactical nuke flying across the screen. But that one, ooh, you know what? That one might actually land. We see the first nuke landing. Everyone get excited. There we go. The probes have already run. Oh, actually, no, it's the second nuke that lands. Never mind. I think it's the second. Maybe you have missed one. Look at those little water balloon throwers. They deal no damage at all. Great snipes there, by the way, by Fantasy. Manages to get 3 of those High Templar for free. Look at the little attack, though, of High Templar. It always looks like they're throwing water balloons. Seriously. Once again, another nuke making its way across the map. This one also will not land. I don't actually know if those nukes have been cost-efficient so far. Players are getting ridiculously good at dealing with those. Well, Zealot's actually coming right now from the side as well, and they're going to be able to clean this up with ease. This is a huge loss in supply here. Keep in mind, right? Fantasy has had a really strong army here for a while, but his mining has been denied for such a long time as well. Look at the banks. Fantasy's bank right now completely depleted. That means that this army that he's got right now is actually the one that he's got to deal with, or that he's got to win with, and I don't really know exactly if that's going to be enough. I mean, yeah, maybe he can fight this army here straight on. He does pick up all of the Thors and gets them back to safety. The issue is right now that Protoss still has a lot of mining ready to go as well to continuously reinforce this army too. This Immortal Ball is not to be underestimated. Like, it really slices through those Immortals, or rather through all of these Thors and then all of the Siege Tanks and Marauders with ease. It's not like they're particularly weak against Ghosts and Marines either. Love the Disruptors right here. Essentially now forcing the Terran player to back up and allowing Protoss to get into a much better spot. The Tempest never really paying for themselves that much. A big Stalker warp in right now too. Kind of like that. Obviously that's going to be helpful when it comes to dealing with all of these units. They deal bonus damage against armored. And obviously most of this army composition right here is armored. Base is currently flying towards the bottom right-hand corner, but already Trap is in that soft underbelly here of the Protoss, right? Or of the Terran, rather. Oh, huge Disruptor hits. But yeah, he's in that soft underbelly, the production of the Terran. If Terran cannot get his units grouped up together, it's a disaster. He does manage to land about a gajillion mules right over here in the bottom right-hand corner of the map. Look at that income skyrocket right here in a second once the mules start returning their resources. It's very significant, but the question is, if you lose all of your production, where are you gonna spend it? Beautiful play right there by Trap. Maneuvering around that map absolutely beautifully. And I really want to emphasize, right? We obviously see a massive circle as to where that nuke is going to land. All that Trap really hears is like, tactical nuke detected, right? That was my best impression. But that's really all he knows. And, well, he probably plays with the Korean voice actor, so I'm not entirely sure. But that's all he really knows. And then he's going to have to find that red dot really quickly. And every single time we heard that sound of the nuke starting up, we saw him finding the red dot within seconds. Now, obviously, the most likely location is always going to be the outer bases, right? The ones that are generally speaking least defended, but that was still beautifully done right there by Trap. Well-deserved victory. I hope you enjoyed watching this game. If you did, make sure you hit that like button down below, and if you want to see more, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you get a notification as soon as I upload more. A special shout out to the Patreon supporters. Thank you very much for your generosity. But for now, I want to thank you for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile alright, and I will see you once again in the next one.